Red, a renowned apothecary living in the remote town of Zoltan, keeps his mysterious past concealed from others. He was once known as Gideon, the sibling of the current hero, Ruti, and a member of her esteemed hero's party. However, due to his inability to improve his combat skills, Ares, the sub-leader of the party, banished Gideon as he was seen as a liability. Returning to his order as a knight of Bahamut would be disgraceful, so Ares allows him to leave behind all the items he acquired from the party and start afresh. One day, Red encounters Albert, an adventurer seeking help to defeat a dangerous owlbear that has appeared nearby and needs a guide through the forest. Red, hoping to keep his true identity and abilities hidden, declines the request. However, when Red's young friend Tanta falls ill with a condition that will cause blindness, Red risks punishment from the adventurers guild and ventures into the closed-off forest to gather medicinal plants for a cure. Albert, suspicious of Red's actions, sets the forest on fire to force the owlbear out, and Red is forced to secretly kill it to protect himself and Tanta. Albert claims to have killed the owlbear and collects the reward. Thankfully, Tanta is saved and Red's carpenter uncle, Gons, builds him his own house and drugstore, allowing Red to finally start the quiet life he has always desired, free from his troubled past. Red's store is visited by a familiar figure, Rit, also known as Riselet, the princess of the powerful Duchy of Loggervia. Rit had fled to Zoltan to escape a power struggle within her own family, and she intends to live with Red, who reluctantly agrees. As Rit settles into her new life with Red, Red's former hero party gains a new member, named Tisgarland, who possesses the divine blessing of the assassin. Throughout this episode, there are flashbacks that reveal Red and Rit's shared history. Rit was once a brash B-rank adventurer and princess of Loggervia, and her hero party had aligned themselves with the duchy. Rit had suggested to her master, the Duke of Loggervia, that they raid the food stores of the Demon Lord's army. However, during the failed raid, Rit discovered that her master was actually an imposter named Shizenden, a general of the Demon Lord's army. She was almost killed, but was saved by Red while Ruti defeated Shizenden. Rit was deeply traumatized by the death of her master, but Gideon, also known as Red, helped renew her will to fight and eventually defeat the Demon Lord's army. However, shortly after, Gideon was banished and settled in Zoltan, where he became known as Red the Apothecary. After Rit and Red successfully shop for a bed, they managed to get approval for a painkiller that Red had concocted for sale. Initially, Dan, who is in charge of approvals, angrily refuses due to a similar medicine he had approved months earlier that had addictive properties and caused negative impacts. However, Rit uses her connections to get their painkiller approved. To complement their new product, Rit and Red then create and sell a health supplement in the form of a cookie, designed to eliminate the bitter taste that repulses most customers and also serve as a cold and fever remedy. The cookies sell out within hours. Meanwhile, Danon becomes fed up with Ares as their mission to locate the Demon Lord's weapon, with help from the desert people, has failed. Ares is furious and blames his poor leadership and Red's absence for the failure. Danon, with Ruti's approval, decides to leave and find Red, knowing that Ares banished Red out of envy. This episode also sheds light on the blessing skill system, which can only be leveled up by killing another sentient, living being with a blessing skill. It is explained that blessings can also affect personality, as having a combat skill can actually make people more prone to violent behavior. Many are taken aback by the fact that Rit, known as Zoltan's most formidable adventurer, is now working and living with Red. Rit, who has a craving for mead, leaves to buy some. In the meantime, Albert pays a visit to the store and accuses Red of killing the owlbear. Red denies any involvement, which provokes Albert to attack him. However, Rit returns just in time and foils Albert's attack. Albert is shocked to see Rit working in Red's store and is also amazed by Red's speed as he catches the mead Rit dropped before it hits the ground. Later, Red and Rit visit Zeph's sauna and notice that there is a lack of customers due to a competing bathhouse built by nobles that includes additional services such as a restaurant and massage parlor. Zeph is worried about going out of business, but now scolds him for his defeatist attitude. Red suggests using a potpourri of medicinal herbs in the sauna itself to entice customers back. Rit later reveals to Red the reason behind her craving for mead. It reminded her of a tradition in Loggervia where newly married couples drink mead together. Meanwhile, Theodora asks Tis if she regrets joining the heroes' party as they have been encountering failure after failure and experiencing internal conflicts, something that never happened when Gideon, Red, was still part of the group. The Adventurers Guild tries to bribe Rit into returning to adventuring, but Rit declines the offer. Similarly, Red refuses a bribe from the Thieves Guild. Red gives Rit an amber bracelet and hints that his next gift will contain a gemstone. In an attempt to manipulate Rit, the Thieves Guild sends Dia to blackmail her by threatening to reveal her location to her royal family. However, this fails as Rit reveals that she does not care about her royal status. Rit reminisces about the time before the hero party defeated the Demon Lord's army. She remembers that she and the party wanted to seek help from the Duchy of Sunland, but they had to cross the dangerous Bewitching Woods, a magical area, with the help of Red's friend Yarandrula, a high elf who was immune to the magical effects of the woods. Rit thought that Yarandrula liked Red, but she was surprised when Yarandrula told her to pursue Red herself. However, upon seeing how close Red was to Ruti, Rit decided not to come between them and left the party to rebuild her homeland. On the other hand, Ruti deeply misses Red and remembers that shortly after Red left, she became aware that Ares had done something to make him leave. This caused Ruti to beat Ares almost to death out of anger and frustration. While delivering medicine to Dr. Newman's clinic, Red comes to the rescue of Jackson, who has been poisoned by a narcotic drug overdose from a recently approved painkiller. However, Red decides not to investigate further. Later, Red and Rit take a break by the river for a swimming picnic, which provides an opportunity for them to grow closer. During this time, Al, Tanta's friend, reveals that he has unlocked his blessing as the weapon master. However, several members of Albert's party suddenly go berserk and attack Rit, only to be stopped by Albert himself, who kills them. At the same time, Danon arrives at Zoltan's location in search of Red and encounters a man named Bui who is also looking for Red. Red recalls memories from his childhood when he used to invent reasons to hold Ruti's hand and promise to become a knight, so he could go on adventures with her. Suddenly, Dr. Newman arrives with an injured Al, interrupting Red's reminiscing. Meanwhile, the heroes' party is resupplying at an oasis in the Blood Sand Desert as they prepare for their next quest. During this time, Tis learns about Ruti's lingering sadness caused by her brother's absence. After recovering from his injuries, Al recounts how a demi attacked him and his parents with an axe at their house. Fortunately, Red and Dr. Newman manage to find Al's parents alive. News of Ademi's disappearance after the attack sparks protests among the people of South Marsh, who believe he is being protected by the town guard led by Moen, Ademi's father. Red and Rit arrange a meeting with Moen and Tanta after learning that Tanta has been taken away by the town guard for questioning. Moen apologizes for Tanta's mistreatment but adamantly refuses to believe that his son could be a potential murderer due to his blessing. He commissions Rit to find the source of the drug. Meanwhile, while Al is at the apothecary, a stranger arrives and gives him a red-bladed shottel enchanted with a locate spell. Rit catches a drug dealer as per Moen's request, but falls into an ambush, from which Danon comes to her rescue. Danon respects Gideon's desire for a quiet life and advises Rit to keep quiet about his presence. They also discover that the attackers are disguised minor demons. As Red and Rit go into town to find a suitable weapon for Al's blessing, protests against the town guard are escalating, likely staged by Big Ok himself. In the meantime, the heroes' party has discovered one of the weapons of the former demon lord, an airship. During their fight with the demon guardians of the airship, Ares proves to be inadequate as a party member but refuses to acknowledge his shortcomings. While the airship provides an opportunity for Ruti to retrieve her brother, she refrains from doing so. While Rit deals with Dio and the individuals who sent the red shottel, Al is kidnapped by Big Ok's henchmen. Al learns that Big Ok is responsible for distributing the Devil's Blessing, a dangerous narcotic that is plaguing Zoltan. Big Ok plans to use Al to execute Ademi, who is in his custody, for his own agenda. However, Al instead frees Ademi, and they are rescued by Red. Red confronts Albert and Big Ok's gang and discovers that Big Ok has been taken over by a contract demon named Belial. Consumed by his ambition to join the heroes' party, Albert tries to attack Red, but Red manages to sever his sword hand. Albert and Big Ok are arrested by the town guard, and Al and Ademi reveal Big Ok's plan to the public, defusing the crisis. A few days later, it is revealed that Red and Rit's relationship is growing stronger, and Al has decided to start adventuring and has joined a party. However, Bui visits the possessed Bigok in prison and reveals himself as Shizendan, the demon lord's general who was thought to have been slain by Ruti. Bui scolds Belial for making humans aware of the dangerous potential of the Devil's Blessing. Belial makes a new contract with Albert and breaks them both out of jail to join the heroes' party, but Ruti draws her sword at them. As Rit and Red begin marketing hand warmers for the upcoming winter season, Bui applies to become a B-ranked adventurer in Zoltan. Ruti, seeking more Devil's Blessing, abandons the heroes' party and leaves for Zoltan in an airship with Tis, disguising themselves as regular adventurers. Tis coincidentally encounters Red at a roadside food stall and they recognize each other as experienced adventurers, which Tis reports back to Ruti. Meanwhile, Red and Rit are guided to a fairy dragon hamlet to attend to a patient named Undine, an arch who is suffering from a magical drain that is spreading across Zoltan due to the presence of a powerful entity. Ruti and Tis manage to free Godwin, the creator of the Devil's Blessing, from prison, but he sustains injuries in the process. In order to treat his wounds, they seek out the local apothecary, leading to an unexpected reunion with Ruti's beloved brother. As Red and Ruti catch up, it is revealed that Ares has betrayed them. Ruti announces that she wants to stay with Red and give up on her role as the hero. However, Ruti suddenly falls ill and feels compelled to search for elven ruins rumored to be in the area, which are said to serve as a secret laboratory for creating the demon's blessing. It is revealed that Bui is responsible for the recent magic drainage in the area using an enchanted crystal heart. Ruti tries to settle in Zoltan, but her strong personality makes it difficult for her to go unnoticed. During a shared bath, Ruti explains to Rit and Tis how much her brother means to her as an emotional support, especially since her blessing as a hero has numbed her ability to feel joy. Tis silently resolves to save Ruti from her forced destiny as the hero. Meanwhile, Ares and Theodora use Albert to track down Ruti. During a break, Theodora explains to Albert that people are not bound by their blessings and can determine their own destiny. Tis shares her findings about Ruti with Red and Rit, leading them to conclude that Ruti's immunities currently protect her from the Devil's Blessing, but taking it to counteract her hero blessing will eventually have adverse effects. Red and Rit prepare to journey to the elven ruins to confront Godwin, but along the way, he encounters Danon, who is overjoyed to see him. However, a fake Danon also appears, causing confusion. Meanwhile, Ares, consumed by jealousy, destroys Red's shop. Red arrives at the elven ruins, which are actually the remains of an advanced civilization, and meets Ruti and Godwin. He encourages his sister to live life on her own terms, not dictated by her blessing. As they discuss the effects of the Devil's Blessing, Ruti realizes she has gained an unprecedented blessing without name. Ares attacks them, but Ruti defies him and leaves his side. Ares then meets Bui, an Asura demon, who reveals that the ruins hold an artifact left behind by the first hero, which Ares could use to win Ruti back. Meanwhile, the real Danon reunites with Theodora and Albert as they hurry to catch up to Red and Rit. After discovering Ares' plans, the heroes quickly converge on his location. Bui, who is revealed to be Shizendan, is attacked by Danon, but with Ares' assistance, critically wounds Danon. They finally reach the chamber, where they find the artifact they were looking for, 5 sword blades, siblings of the sacred sword wielded by Ruti and remnants from the time of the first hero. As Red's group arrives, Ares and Shizendan attack, trying to kill Red and use the sacred swords to bring Ruti back to her role as the hero. Theodora intervenes and attacks Ruti in an attempt to steer her back onto the hero's path. Rit protests against this, arguing that it is not solely the responsibility of the one carrying the hero's blessing to save the world, but rather the will of the people that determines who becomes a hero. Red, Ruti, Rit, Tis, and Godwin stand against their enemies. Red manages to defeat Ares, but Shizendan tricks Ruti into touching one of the sacred blades, subjecting her to the compulsions of her blessing. Driven by the urge of her blessing, Ruti attacks Red, but Tis takes the blow, critically wounding her. Red successfully disarms Ruti, breaking the influence of the sacred blade over her, but her blessing has been nullified. As a way of repentance for her unwavering adherence to her belief in the hero's blessing, Theodora heals Tis's mortal wound. It becomes clear to everyone present that being a hero is not solely determined by one's blessing, but rather by their own choices. In the aftermath, Ruti and Tis move to Zoltan, where Ruti receives a new blessing that suppresses her previous hero's blessing. Red fully accepts Rit as his wife, and his life in Zoltan returns to normal with the occasional emergency that Ruti chooses to handle. Meanwhile, in the wilderness, Yarandrula encounters Godwin, who informs her about Red and Ruti's whereabouts, prompting her to join them in Zoltan once again.